where morals end and desperation begins. That's right. This is me trying to learn a line, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Gab Smacked with a movie review and our Ain Alif Qaf meter here with my awesome friend, Miss Bliss. Hello, Miss Bliss.
Hi, Gab Smacked.
Yeah, this is one of our guests decided to come and help me with this movie review, and the movie was Kfar Nahum, which is pronounced Capernaum. Everyone knows Capernaum comes from Kfar Nahum, and Kfar Nahum is a place in Israel, Palestine, Israelistine, whatever you want to call it. And Kfar is the old place for like the town or village, old Semitic name, ancient, way before Arabic. Doesn't really mean anything. There's a fan blowing at the moment, but that's okay, it's over there. So, Miss Bliss.
Yes.
I found that the movie was exhilarating because it brings you into a parable that could easily be real in a part of the world that you wouldn't even be able to imagine if you live in the first world.
Yeah.
What the hell? So we've got what? We've got one little dude who's brought up in a household. I can't tell, were they refugees?
No.
They were actually Lebanese.
Yeah, I think so. And they were pretending, he was pretending later to be a Syrian.
Who's pretending later?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would...
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, I have lived many years in Lebanon, and most of you don't know that it is an amazingly beautiful, hyper-advanced, progressive Mediterranean country. And that's all I saw. But today, in this movie, I got to see the dark side, the crazy, and then sometimes he would be able to make it into a place where he could get some bread or something off somebody. And it was a glimpse of the world that I was used to over there.
Yeah,
So-
palm trees in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, exactly. Palm trees, Mediterranean, Miss Bliss, a cup of coffee, and people drinking and talking with class. You know, I like the class very much. Beautiful Mediterranean Sea. So we did get the Mediterranean Sea. There was Cockroach Man. Cockroach Man was hilarious. The guy that sort of didn't really know what was going on with himself.
Dressed in an older man in a Spider-Man suit.
That's right, with no teeth.
Yeah.
Her.
But a cockroach on it instead
Yeah.
of...
Why do you have a cockroach? Because I'm Cockroach Man. Are you related to Spider-Man? He's my cousin.
He was an awesome character.
Yeah, he was one of the highlights. So what's it about? It's about this guy. So this is what happens. I was talking about this today on YouTube. In a hyper-capitalistic type of place, without any safety nets, if you don't make it into the middle class, you are done for. So what they had, it was like a studio where they lived, and they were lucky to get a shower if they could, the kids. And if they did, it was cold. So sometimes they might have got hot water possibly, but I don't think that they did. That was one guy, the 12-year-old. The 12-year-old who I'm going to call the Lebanese MacGyver.
Yeah.
Because freaking hell, he ends up getting, without telling you the whole story, he gets stuck with a 2-year-old baby. And he has to help this thing survive and himself survive. And he comes up with this random stuff. I'm telling you now, it was a superhero movie. The kid was a superhero. He's able to, out of nowhere, in the middle of nothing, what does he do? He runs off with a skateboard.
It's like your recumbent bike, but on a
Yes,
skateboard
that's
made of
right.
pots.
Yes, skateboard made of pots and turns that into a stroller for the kid. It's just crazy. It makes you realize really that the rest of the world, what they have to go through to even just make it through a day. And here we are complaining about if we don't brush our teeth twice in a day. These guys are lucky to find a toothbrush once that's not freaking bacteria filled on the floor. It's just amazing stuff. What I don't understand is why would the parents keep having kids? That's the part I didn't understand. They couldn't afford to even have one kid, but they had 5 or 6. Did they not understand to use protection?
I think they leave that question hanging for a reason, and that's why I think,
Oh.
that's why that's such an important part of the story.
Okay. What I found, the thing I didn't like about the movie was that it was deliberately trying to rub it into your face, right? No puns intended. It was preachy. And that problem is that it detracts, I think, from the realism of the movie. Like, what was happening was horrendous. It was horrific. It was abhorrent. It was a nightmare. It was something that you think it's so real, and yet you don't want it to be. You can't wait to leave the cinema and then look around and see a clean carpet and there's glass that hasn't been smashed in and someone trying to steal the food. But the preachiness just rubs it in. It's like, can you see it? I'm like, I can see it. Trust me, I can see it. I really appreciate where I am. You don't have to stop the movie halfway through and then rub it in my face. I'm already at the movie. I paid the ticket to come and see it. It's okay. I get it. I'm one of the good guys. I think I am sometimes anyway. I don't know what else to say about it. It was brutal. It really was. It was really brutal. It really was able to get you into the realism of it. It did a lot of filming from the height of the 12-year-old trying to survive. And so adults really look like monsters from that height. And this kid is going through streets in surviving in ways that honestly, even here in the West, in America or Australia, whatever, if we were on the street here, I think I would die within about 3 seconds. I mean, my life, when I was in the Middle East once, I was stuck for 3 months roaming the streets and hitchhiking, and I found food where I could. But even then, it was nowhere near as bad because I was up in the Alpine mountains, so it was way safer except for the hyena. Yeah, that was a bit scary. Once I was sleeping out on a hammock of someone's house, and all I heard was, but it did not sound like a dog. It sounded like a dog that had been eaten by another dog, something like that.
Because aren't they cats? But they're
Hyenas.
They're more like
Yeah. Hyenas are a feline, but that's called convergent evolution. Yeah. And then they have more canine appearance. Yeah, there you go. Miss Bliss is very proud of herself right now because she's actually extremely intelligent, but she's being very.
You said it on one of your.
Oh, because I said it on one of my scopes. She's very intelligent because she watches one of my scopes. My God. I say that with humility. Apart from the dragging out of the movie, the story is brutal. It is twisted. The molestation of boys and girls and the hinted at molestation and the potential molestation and the way this kid got away from it and from out of it. And honestly, the balls that this kid had, and the ovaries that his sister had even, but it's a tragedy as well. And there's also an immigrant who is actually emigrating to Lebanon and has to stay in there illegally because she can't go back home because her mother's dying. And the only way she can get her money to stay alive, she wouldn't be dying normally. She's just a mother who's in her 60s or whatever. She would have died because there's no healthcare in Ethiopia where she was from. And so she had to go to Lebanon, which is, the most progressive country in the Middle East, in order to send money back to them. But she was there illegally and she had a baby there. And so she was in a precarious situation too. So it's like you got to keep your job, but then there's someone blackmailing you because they know you have a kid in Lebanon. You can't talk to the father because he'll be beaten and put in prison for having a child that's not even registered. So the whole thing was just a disaster, honestly. The things that people have to go through that you don't really know to even consider. And that story reminds me that I have a fan on right now, not the air conditioning. You know why? I don't really care. Honestly, don't care. I'm so glad that I'm not getting attacked by someone or something. Did you have any? The only thing was that it dragged on. They dragged it, so it's going to piss off people who are less sympathetic temperamentally to what I call. I'm normally susceptible to stuff that you would accuse the bleeding heart liberal of, being sensitive to. If you're not that way, it's going to annoy you, and that pisses me off because that means that the message won't get through, and I really wish that it would. Because it is really real what people are doing. There's also people capitalizing on that. So there was one guy in Lebanon who was capitalizing on the fact that there were illegal immigrants and profiting from them. And you think to yourself, is he evil? Because he actually the way he acted, he really cared about everyone he was helping. It seemed to me that he really cared about them. And yet he was still capitalizing on the situation. And it's like, he's not moral, he's not immoral, he's sort of amoral somewhere there. And it's like, he doesn't really have a choice because he comes from a horrific area as well. And so what do you do in that situation? Do you starve to death or do you capitalize on the misfortune of others? And that part was brought into the movie too, which I thought was amazing to watch.
I think it was so interesting that it was kind of talking about almost like four stratum of people in inverted commas, classless society, but below the poverty line that you would never see. So, like you said, the immigrant that's immigrating to Lebanon doesn't have papers to work legally. then the family that is living in poverty essentially,
Yeah.
shantytown effectively, or tenements or whatever you want to call it, and then the immoral or questionably immoral guy capitalizing on that, and then like that's just before you even get to
exactly.
Like it's not even.
That's such a
lower
brilliant
class.
point. Yeah, it's still under the whole thing is underclass, and yet there are sub underclasses.
Yeah.
And so the people at the bottom are trying to get up to the next rung, and then even then they're still in the underclass, and they know that they're parasites. And the father lost respect for himself, I think, which is why he was so abhorrent to the kids.
Yeah.
And the moves that they had to pull off, selling your kid, or selling drugs or your kids into sexual slavery and stuff. I just can't believe it. It was so real. It's like they were literally you or me trying to make the best decision they could in that situation.
Yeah.
And that's their choices. Do we starve, or do we put our kids into sexual slavery, or do we sell drugs? Which option do you want? Do you make your kid work? The main guy of the movie was working, it looked like between 12 and 16-hour days, either selling gas or selling stuff on the street or begging.
Yeah. And coming back to your question about why they keep having children and why don't they use protection, I wonder if it's a financial thing. That's one element of it. There's obviously education.
Yeah.
Is it cultural? Is it traditional?
Yeah.
Did the woman want to have babies?
I'm blown away because when I lived in Lebanon, I guess we were all, relative to them, unbelievably hyper privileged. Every single person in my family has like a postgrad or a PhD who's my age or younger. Everyone's got their own car. They live the way we would live here. Air conditioning, fans, food, they eat out 5-6 days a week. So they have a better life in many cases than us. They have 2 houses. Almost every person in Lebanon, my family had 2 houses, one in the mountains and one on the coast, full-time jobs. And they were complaining that they didn't have it as good as us in the West. But now I look at these guys and I'm like, I never saw that when I was in Lebanon. So how blind was I, to that stuff that was going on?
And it's like we were saying about in Sydney or in other countries.
Yeah.
There are pockets of areas that you don't go to ever. Or
Yes.
you know that something exists.
Yeah.
Like the scope you did.
Like the scope I did on St. Mary's. That's right. No one, even in Australia, people didn't know about St. Mary's. St. Mary's reminds me of that movie we saw.
And that reminds me of Mumbai.
Okay. Of Mumbai, guys.
Places in India that are like that.
Okay.
Parts of villages where kids run around half naked.
Yeah.
They can't afford clothing. They barely get any food, but they're happy.
Yeah. Which half? I don't want to know.
Sadly, the bottom half.
So, as you can probably ascertain, Miss Bliss seems to have a knowledge of India for some reason. And I seem to have a knowledge of Lebanon for some reason. Who knows why that is? I have no idea.
Are you Lebanese?
I am Australian, but I also have Lebanese citizenship, and I did live there for a long time. So I don't know how that works exactly. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I have on the story. So do you have anything else to comment on?
No.
Yeah.
I just agree with you about the pace, like the cadence towards the end, or those parts where you see people in jail and then the religious people come in. There's parts of it. It's like it's just smacks of trying to say something.
Yeah, they're trying to push. I have to say, I think that the moral with the religious people going into jail and playing the guitars is that they're equally annoying everywhere you go. They're walking in with these fake ass smiles. Everybody, we're happy. La 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 la. Hey, I know you're all in the prison rotting on the ground, probably having a shower in a week. That's right. It's all better now. Hey, let's. Oh my God. I just wanted to punch him in the face. I thought that would have brought the prisoners joy. Watch me. Yeah. So that's the end of the story, guys. So there you go. It was a bit slow, but in terms of the knowledge you gain of what's happening around the world and the underclass of the underclass and the subclasses and how people survive and the choice they have available to them, it is an experience that I cannot say someone in the first world would be responsible to miss out on in some capacity.
Particularly because it's literally in every country. This would exist.
Yeah.
Variations of
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
Everywhere you live.
You know what's funny? I saw stuff like that in Greece.
Yeah.
When the garbologists went on strike.
Yeah.
And the streets were lined with garbage and people were throwing stuff out of their balcony onto the street because that's the only place they could go.
Yeah. I saw parts of the movie reminded me parts of Lower San Diego when you get to the Mexico border.
Really?
So,
wow. In America?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's places like that everywhere you go. And,
Crazy.
yeah.
What was your rating?
Oh, yes. My rating is a Saddad Ain. All right. It's a pleasure, guys, to talk to you. Thank you so much for getting to the end of this review. And don't forget, as always, to take life one smack at a time. Boom!
We